Well, welcome to another episode of Fair Folk at Work. You know, one of the neat things about living in a pseudo-Elizabethan village is that you could kind of tell just by looking where somebody was coming from. And if somebody is like in a chair and people are yelling at her, you better just like take a knee and go, God save the Queen. My guest today has ridden in a chair many times. And so I'm happy to say hello to Christina Forst. Christina, how's it going? The first Fair Folk at Work question that I give everybody is, who was the person who first told you there's this thing called fair, and what did they say to get you out there?
My very first visit to the fair, I went with my family. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And I went with my older sister, who would have been about 9 or 10, and my younger brother, who had been 5 or 6, and my mom and some of her friends. And she had friends who had worked there, probably Clan MacCollin, because she had ties to various Scottish music scene. So we went out there, and her friend had assured her that she had costumes for all of us. So we found her, and she got everybody dressed up. My mom looked great. My sister had this amazing little outfit that was perfect for her. My brother and I each got put in a shift. So we were just wearing a shirt. And that annoyed me no end because that obviously my sister gets this wonderful costume and I didn't. And that's just not fair. Typical middle child syndrome. And then they were ready to go walking around the fair and they decided to put the two younger kids, me and my brother, in the little daycare area for the day. So I spent my whole day in a little child prison, and it was hot and dry and dusty. And I thought, this is the stupidest thing. I hate this. I'm never, ever going back again, ever. My sister, of course, had a fantastic time. And she had found some of her friends who were involved in the Renaissance Fair, I think a game booth or something, when she was a teenager. And so she got involved with, I think, Clan MacCollin. And she was telling me how amazing it was and how I needed to come back. And I said, no, it was so dumb. I hated it. She forcibly dragged me out to fair when I was about 14. And I had the most amazing day ever because the fair is very different at 14 than it is when you're 7. And I discovered an entire world where I could go and be myself and be accepted for being myself. And so the next year I joined. I had wanted to audition to be part of the performing arts department, but ironically, I had a show the day that they were holding auditions. So I joined a game booth, and I was a boothie my first year. And then the following year, I
What
auditioned.
was the booth?
The booth was a game booth called Il Stenciamente, and it was shooting balls in at wolves that were cut out. You had to knock over the wolves to save the sheep. It was interesting, but I was there to hawk and to bring people in and to come and play our game and to hand out, vouchers for a free ball and so on. But I met a bunch of wonderful people and I
What
got to
class
know.
were you shooting for as the hawker for the Kill the Wolves booth?
Well, because it was an Italian booth, I was playing an Italian character. And my sister that year was in the San Lorenzo, the Italian group. So she and I both played Italian characters that we'd been split up. And so when I was not scheduled to work at the booth, I'd go and I'd hang out with her. And then the following year, I was able to audition and I joined the performing arts department. My sister had moved on to St. Ives to be a part of the middle class. And I stubbornly decided not to do the same thing as she did. So I decided to join St. Albans that ran the Green Man Inn. They were run by Mother Bumby and Mother Drum, and the late, unfortunately, just wonderful, incredible people who have been fantastic mentors to me and to so many people at the fair. But I was also only 16, so I couldn't serve alcohol. I didn't have a lot to do, so they basically told me, go and do something out in the streets.
What memories do you have of walking around the fair and looking at things and saying, ooh, that's really cool?
The biggest thing that I would look at, I would go over and watch the court and just be amazed. not even getting near to the queen. You'd only ever see the queen at a distance, but I would watch the courtiers walk by. I would watch all of the nobility and go, oh my goodness, that's just so amazing. I loved seeing the pageantry of the different shows that would happen during the day. I loved watching the parades. And even just watching the people walking by, not only the participants, but also the patrons that would come by, there's no better people watching than at the fair. So I would go out and just with several people, we'd go and find people to talk to, and we'd find people to ribbit them and just enjoy making connections with people. Why had they come to the fair? What were they enjoying? What were they doing? What was their favorite thing that they had seen that day? And as a very shy, introverted teenager, this was a completely new world for me.
Did you get food tickets or
We did get food tickets. So those were good for the fast food place on the island, I think. So we got a lot of burgers there. But the real treat, I loved the soup in a bread bowl. It's always fantastic. And I am a sucker for a crepe. I loved the crepe Florentine. That was my favorite thing to have, especially at that age.
no, if you were doing middle class, how could you eat without becoming a peasant? He said diplomatically.
Well, there's this wonderful new invention called the fourchette that you could use. And if you are of sufficient means or sufficiently upwardly mobile, you can use those to eat without getting your hands messed up. Plus, they do give you a plastic spoon, and if you're quick, they don't notice. So I would keep my decorum and I would manage to eat without turning into a peasant again. And I've found that even when I dress down, it just doesn't look right. I was meant to be middle class and above. It doesn't look right otherwise.
You said something about having another show outside of fair on an audition day.
Mhm.
So, what was your sort of pre-fair theatrical experience?
I love being on stage. I've always loved being on stage. And I started performing as a singer at a very young age as well. I think I was actually about that age, 7, and my sister was 9 when we made our professional debut singing at the Scottish Fiddlers of Los Angeles spring concert. We were singing some Gaelic songs that our father had taught us. I always loved singing. I always loved performing. I always got involved in whatever stage show that I could that was happening at school. So every we had a show in the fall and a show in the spring, and it ended up that our spring performances were the same time that the Renaissance Fair auditions happened to be. So obviously I couldn't miss a performance day. I was lucky the following year it didn't line up quite so well.
At the same time, you describe yourself as shy. So, did you seek out the stage experiences to kind of self-consciously balance all that out?
I think there's some of that, but also being on stage and performing, I'm given the words to say. And I know what words I'm going to get in response, or I'm performing a song. It's all been rehearsed. So I don't have to worry about what I'm going to say. Am I going to get it wrong? Am I going to say the wrong thing? I know what I need to say. I just need to say it. And then I know the response that I get, and then I'll respond to that. And then we'll have our scene, we'll have our dance, we'll have our song, we'll have our show.
So, how do you get from the certainty of a scripted situation to sort of a more ended meet and greet at the fair, accepting this 4-year-old girl has just been shoved in front of you and she's kind of looking at you like you're, well, the queen. So suddenly you're in a situation where it is not
Mm-hmm.
set in stone what's going to happen next.
Yes, a whole lot of practice. I obviously I'm not 15 anymore, and I have had a lot more experience in working with improv, both for my own character as well as improv with my court and with everyone that I run into. What I do generally, I understand why people are there to meet the queen. I know what they want, and they want to come and see me. They want to talk to me. They want to feel that they're seen, and they want to feel welcome. And so that is my goal when I have a little 4-year-old who comes up to me and who's just absolutely in awe that she is meeting the queen. So I welcome her. I welcome her to my court. I ask what her favorite thing that she's seen or done that day is, and then we can talk about that. Or if she's completely lost for words, I'll say, did you get to see a show? Did you get to try something delicious today? If she has something on her, like a new costume, or if it has one little dragon on your shoulder, ask them about that and get them talking about their experience. And then I can react to that. A lot of times, a lot of little girls are interested in the young ladies that I have with me, the maids of honor. How do I get to do that? And I'll tell them, well, maybe one day you can come back when you're a little older and you can come and join me and be a part of my court, be one of my maids of honor. A lot of times they'll be introduced to me as a princess in their own right. So I'll invite them to come and join me in my court as visiting royalty. We are always honored to welcome any visitors to our court. I have a number of things that I can do, but in general, I am welcoming them to come and see me. I want to make sure they know that it's all right. Elizabeth historically went out on her progress to go and see her people. She knew that the strength of her claim to the throne was based on the love and support of her people, and she actively cultivated that. So that's what I'm doing in my own way, theatrically, both with the audience and with the participants as well. I do a whole lot of outreach trying to connect with the different groups so that they see me as their queen rather than just someone that they see being carried by in a chair. My goal for this role, I want them to shout, God save the queen, but I want them to mean it. And so it's on me to earn it, to be worthy of them shouting that out. And that's how I approach it. That guides everything that I do out at fair. And it has paid me back in spades, both with the audience and with the participants.
Was there a certain point when you looked around the fair and saw the queen, whoever that was, and you said, I could do that?
No, not until much later. When my first queen is Athene, who
Hmm.
was the queen right after Louisa. Although I did get to work with Louisa, Athene's final year, they actually traded. So Athene would be the queen on Saturday and Louisa would be the queen on Sunday. And they're very, very different. So the court had to switch gears completely when interacting with one versus the other because every queen has their own approach. They have their own way of interpreting the character, their own way of interacting with the court. And having the change between those two was really kept us on our toes. It was a lot of fun. But Thene was always my queen, and she remains my queen. She's a very dear friend, and she has inspired me tremendously. But I would see her work. Athene was, I think, one of the best at being able to convey the power and the intelligence of Elizabeth. You had no doubt that she is the smartest woman in that room, and she knows it, and she will show it to you. Everyone, I think, was always a little afraid of her. I will always envision Athene when I imagine the queen. Everybody at fair has their queen. Everybody does. It's usually the first person who's in the role when you start, but it's not always. Sometimes it's different. So Athene is always going to be my queen. It's so gratifying to have people come up to me and say, You're my queen. It's an incredible legacy. And I've followed so many amazing women in this role, and it's a huge legacy. And I'm so proud to be a part of it. I'm always aware that I'm following in these footsteps and that I am inspiring whoever is going to be the next one as well. And again, whoever is going to take over from me, whenever that may be, is going to bring their own take to it and their own ideas, their own inspiration, just like I'm doing with mine. It is always in the back of my mind that for a whole number of people and a whole bunch of new people and all of the fair brats coming in, that I am their first exposure to this character. I may imprint on them what my interpretation is. And so I'm always going to keep that in mind when I'm portraying her.
Can I ask
But
a
Athene,
question?
sure.
Say it's 20 years from now and somebody else is the queen and you are magically in the audience. What that you are doing now would please you the most to see her do?
Inclusion. I would want her to be including everyone, not only in the court, because obviously there are going to be people that you interact with more often that have higher profile roles or that are more outgoing, but wanting to make sure that everyone in the group is a part of the court and that is able to interact with the queen, but also encouraging people to from outside of court, to come and visit, to come and interact with us, encouraging stage shows to come and perform for us. Or when she is walking out around the fair, that she is reaching out not only to the audience members, not only to the other people of part of entertainment, the other theatrical groups, but I go and visit booths and I go and talk to the booth owners and I go and ooh and ah over all of their wares and make a big fuss because I'm big and shiny and I attract attention. And then they can then brag, the queen was here earlier today and she was standing right where you are now. And she admired this beautiful stained glass, or she had admired this vase or this cup, or she loved this jewelry or something, and it gives them something to talk about. It gets them connected into the village as a whole, or even food and beverage, that when I'll walk by, that they'll know me and they'll recognize me and they know that they can be a part of it as well. I would love to see that tradition carried on and just have the connection for everybody on site, not just entertainment, not just marketplace, not just food and beverage as separate entities, but all of us together as a community.
I've asked this question almost always, and sometimes it fails horribly. And I think it probably the way I phrase it.
Okay.
There can be two senses of joy in performing in front of an audience. There's the one where you're performing, like you said it, and you know the joke, you know the dance that's coming up, you know the line, and you know that there's just some things that are going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that when those things happen, you go, oh, that was fun. And then there are those times when you're interacting with two people, walking down the street. I am of the opinion that is two different types of performance and two different types of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Performing sort of semi-improv for two people versus watching 600 people kneel while you wave your hand and say, "Be gone, you Spanish scurvy knave," or whatever you say. First of all, do you think that's true? And second of all, do you have a preference? I'm talking about it inside emotionally when you have like two people respond versus 600 people responding.
I love them both. Obviously, there's a place for both in my heart and my performance day. And when I go out and I am introduced out at the joust and the entire arena is cheering for me and have stood and they're shouting, God save the queen, and I welcome them to the joust, that's wonderful. Of course, that's fantastic. But I live for the moments when I am just one on one or in a close conversation with just a couple of people. I absolutely adore that. And actually, when I come in the main gate, I'm not carried in because I don't have a set time that I need to be there. I walk in and I am greeted by the Lord Mayor and welcomed. And then I dismiss the majority of my court. I just take a few of my attendants with me and we meander in on our way to walk in, and I can stop and talk to whoever I like. And I love that. I get a chance. If I'm at a parade and I'm walking by at a certain set pace and I see children who are just absolutely in awe as the court and the queen walks by, and I can't stop and talk to them, it's wonderful for the pageantry. And I do enjoy that. But how much better is it when I see children who are dressed up as courtiers, who are so excited to come and meet the queen? And I'm walking by slowly. I stop, I see them, and I go over and I greet them. Anyway, good morning, and how is your day? And what are you looking forward to today? What's your name? What are you? And I have a basket full of little favors that I supply that I give out to children. So not only have they had the meeting with me, they'll get a picture with me if they want, they get the whole experience, but they get something that they get to take away with them as well. And I have children that come back year after year, and I have different ones that I can give out. So they'll show me that they're still wearing the ring that I gave them last year. And now I'm going to give them a different ring. So they got a gold one last year. Now they get a silver one. And now they're going to get a coin. And now they're going to get a ribbon favor. And I absolutely love getting the chance to make individual connections on a personal level with as many people as I can. And it is sheer magic and utterly exhausting. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I absolutely love it. That is my favorite part of the job. And I'm so grateful that they let me do that.
Have you raised your kids out at the fair? And how do you see the fair as a place to let kids run wild or whatever?
Well, they don't run wild now. I started at fair when I was 15, and it was absolutely transformative for me. My husband started fair when he was 5, and he's been involved since then. So he's absolutely wholeheartedly a fair brat. We have one child, our son, who is almost 16. And he has always been at court with me. Before I was the queen, I was part of the court. So he was always a noble baby, has always been dressed up and high ranking. And he didn't really understand much of it as a baby. But when he was about 5, he really got into the power of playing a high ranking child, because it's amazing when you're a little kid and you walk into Court Glade and all of the adults bow around you. That is a very heady experience for a 5-year-old, and he absolutely adored that. At that age, I was playing the Duchess of Norfolk, and so he was playing the eldest son and heir of the Duke of Norfolk, who is Lord Philip Howard, the Earl of Surrey, who is ranking as a marquis. So he is the ranking earl at 5, and would walk in with, a 6-year-old earl's daughter, and the two of them would walk in. And they outrank 90% of the court. And it's hilarious to the audience to see these two little kids, beautifully dressed children, walk into court, and all of the adults immediately all bow. It's just something you don't see. And it's something that helps to take you out of the modern mindset into, this is a very different world where we are right now. So I've always encouraged him in that. And he's always played high ranking characters. In fact, he's still playing Lord Surrey even now. And he has always been my little clothes horse and has always wanted to be dressed in gold silk suits, and even now. And I fortunately got into historical costuming. So I have been able to keep him beautifully attired through this whole time as well. I wanted him to have the same experience of being able to be himself at fair, because my experience was, when I was in high school, I was shy, I was introverted, and I had trouble making friends, because at school, the people that I'd been at school with, they'd known me the whole time, and you kind of get pigeonholed as a particular person in a particular role. This is who you are. And I could never change that. So going out to fair, I would just be myself, and they would accept it, and I could talk to anyone. I didn't have to worry about, oh well, I'm not part of the popular crowd, so I can't talk to this person. They don't care at fair. You are a part of the fair. Everyone in some way is kind of an outcast that has come to find their place at fair. And it was an absolutely transformative experience for me to find that welcome and to find my people. I've wanted the same for my son out at fair, that he gets to go and to be himself. And I think because he was raised out at fair as well, I was pregnant out at fair and he was a baby the following year. And he's always been there. When you have two parents who are involved, he gets dragged along to it, whether he wanted to or not. And as he's gotten older, I've given him the opportunity of whether or not he wants to continue. He's old enough now, he can stay at home if he didn't want to take part in it, but he still wants to be a part of it. He's now really embracing being in court. He's starting to learn more of the dances. He's starting to learn more about his character and bringing things in. He wouldn't call himself an actor, but he is enjoying more of the performance aspects than he did, I think, when he was little. And I'm really grateful that he's had this experience to be himself, so that when he is at school, he again is able to be himself, and he's never had to think about a different face for a particular group of friends as opposed to someone else at different times. That he has grown up being able to be himself to everyone. And I think that's helped him in his life so far.
Let me turn that question around a little bit
Mhm.
and say, has there been times in your non-fair life that you've used the knowledge of how to talk to people derived at fair in a non-fair environment?
Oh my goodness, I'm using it right now. The fact that I'm able to have an interview and able to talk off the cuff and bring up stories without being completely choked with anxiety, that's entirely down to my experiences at fair. Having the experience and being able to interact with people and to keep a conversation going, that hugely influential based on my experiences at fair.
Okay, you're coming home from fair, it's hot and dusty, and you're rolling to 7-Eleven and you're going to buy a Slurpee. And do you assume a regal air as you approach the counter with the hot dogs and corn nuts?
I am very proud to say that when I go past the burlap curtain and I go backstage, the character drops. And my court will back me up in this. When I go backstage, I am Christina. I am not Her Majesty. You do not bow and scrape. You don't attend me backstage. I am me. I'm a grown adult and I can take care of myself. So even people who are assigned to be watching me, I'll say, okay, we're going to take a break here for 15 minutes. Stay close, but you can go and use the privy, go and get some water, take a break, sit down, rest. I'm not going to leave without you. So I have never had a problem dropping the character outside of where it's needed. So only out front on stage am I the queen, and I've always felt very strongly about that.
I'm
Um,
not talking about necessarily the character of the queen, but more sort of the confidence, like the way I sometimes phrase this question,
mhm,
again, as a librarian, especially when I was starting, I would go to the reference desk and I'd say to myself, yesterday I was in tights screaming my head off in front of 600 people and they were laughing.
mm,
Going to the desk right now and saying, may I help you,
mm,
really should not be that much of a stretch. So I'm not talking about I am the
mhm,
queen
mm,
reverence, but just sort of a general people are there. They're going to like me. It's going
mhm,
to be okay.
absolutely. Hugely so, of course, knowing that I can approach anyone and win them over and using the skills of the various characters I play. But also, if I'm walking down like a crowded street, I throw the queen on just in the walk and the attitude, and people will move out of the way. So I do use that as well.
Let me give you a counterfactual.
Okay.
In a world where the Renaissance Fair does not exist, how would your life have played out?
I would not have met my husband. I would not have met so many of my friends. I don't know. My gosh. I think I probably would have had the same sort of confidence growth by the time I got to college, but it would have been years behind. And I can't even imagine. I wouldn't have been sewing because I started sewing because of fair. And I've my skills and things, my research has grown from that. I don't know that I would have been a history major. I don't know that I would have been in theater as much as I was. The number of people in my life that I wouldn't have had it if it hadn't been for fair, I can't even begin to think the impact on my life.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of how to phrase this. Um, Not so much I wouldn't have met my husband. You know the movie Spinal Tap?
Yeah.
There's this scene where Rob Reiner is interviewing one of the musicians and he's answers the question what well I would have been a shoe salesman. I'm looking for
Mm-hmm.
if you hadn't become an extroverted service personnel in the travel industry, what do you think would have attracted your attention?
I think because I was always involved in theater, I think I still would have gravitated towards that. So I imagine I would have continued in theater as much as possible. But again, it's all so tied in with fair, and my improv skills, my performance skills improve based on my experiences there. So I can't even say I would have gone for something safe that pays the bills. But I think I would have still looked to find some sort of creative outlet somewhere because you need that in your life. If you're a creative person, you have to have that or you'll die.
Were
So
you a
it,
theater major in college?
I was a theater minor in college. I ended up not having the time in my schedule, so I missed out on one tech theater class, which would have let me do the major. But I ended up with a theater minor, and I was a history major. But I had always intended to go as, I think, psychology major and a theater major, double major, and changed my mind once I got there. I just figured I'd explore various classes and see what I enjoyed most. But I knew I was going to be involved in music. I knew I was going to be involved in theater, even if it wasn't what I was studying.
What roles typically did you go for or typecast as?
Well, I went to an all girls school in high school. And so, because I am very tall, I was always cast in the male roles. So, I got to play a whole lot of leading male roles in high school. And then I got to college and I was not really cast as any of the leads at all because I'm not what they were looking for the female role. And there really wasn't a role for me to play otherwise. So that was a really frustrating experience that my own physiology excluded me from a lot of the roles that I wanted to play or that I would play. And that kind of soured me into against going into performing arts as a career. I pretty much continued it for fun. I figured I'll be in the chorus, or if there's a fun character role that they might have that being tall isn't a liability, that I would do that. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't what I'd hoped to do.
Whereas you could be
Singing.
as tall as you wanted it fair.
I was worried about that actually when I auditioned for the role of Queen, that I was concerned that I would be too tall and that I would be excluded from the role because of the other characters that they had. Maybe the Lester that they had opposite me wasn't tall enough, and that I would then wouldn't be cast in the role for fear of that. I don't think that was a legitimate concern, but that was always in the back of my mind based on my experiences in college. And I'm very grateful that wasn't the case, that they have been perfectly happy to have me at my current height, and it adds to the awe and majesty and striking terror into the hearts of my subjects.
Is there a Queen minor leagues that you had to work your way up
Uh,
from? Yeah,
I was in the court for, I joined court first in 95, and then when I was in college, and then I had a year abroad, and then I came back my senior year. And so I had those 2 years, and then I moved to England for a number of years. But when I moved back to California, I went back to the court. So I've always been, for the majority of my time out at fair, all but a handful of years, I've been part of the court because that is my natural home. That's where I always wanted to be. I played a maid of honor, I played court ladies and various attendants, and attended numerous different actresses portraying Queen Elizabeth. So I got to see so many different interpretations of the role, and also got to help out new ones when they came into the role that weren't sure of how to interact with us. We could help them along as well.
who were
So
the
as far as
actresses or courtiers that attracted your attention of, oh, that's what I want to do?
Mhm.
So who were those people? Not necessarily the queens, but the fellow nobles.
Oh my goodness. When I first joined court, there were some incredible performers that I would just sit and watch. Danny Rutherford is an absolute force of nature and was so entertaining to watch the different characters that he played. Carlos Peñaranda is an amazing one as well. Roxanne Dungero. There were a number of them that I just wanted to watch and absorb and watch what they did and take inspiration from their portrayals. And that really was who I looked up to initially. And then when I finally got up the courage to audition for court myself, and I was cast as a maid of honor and just wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn all the dances. I wanted to learn as much history as possible, to learn all of the songs that I could do. And I was really surprised and gratified at the welcome that I got from everybody, and realizing that this is where I'm meant to be, and that they see it too, and they want to include me, and they want to encourage me to further my characterization, further my studies and my understanding of history and the characters that I'm playing. And that That was wonderful. So many people. Jeff Basiri was a great one. The absolutely incredible Robert Young, who was the Earl of Leicester when I first started at court. And the character I was playing was actually his niece, I think. So he and I got to work together, and he became a wonderful friend. And even today, just incredibly inspirational. But there are,
What
I
were
can't
some of
even.
the court bits that would sort of come around that you liked? Gave you joy just either to observe or participate in on some level?
I loved watching the Queen get to be the Queen. So someone would come in and they would have all of these ideas, and Athena's just, no, this is not how it's going to be. Let me show you how it's going to be. And so they would come in and discuss marriage options for her, or they would discuss politics or something else. And she would toy with them like a cat with a mouse and just let them go and dig their grave. And then she's like, all right, now we're done. Let me tell you how it's going to be. And just seeing Master at work was phenomenal. And I love just the sheer power that she's able to convey. Just being able to watch that and to see, particularly in modern society where women are told that they're, you don't want to get too much into this, but when I was growing up, there was a lot more pressure to that you should be quiet and you should know your place and you should let the men talk and let the men do their thing. And I loved being able to see a woman in a position of power and enjoyed very much that the Elizabethan court and particularly Athene's portrayal of Queen Elizabeth allowed for that. And boy, did she take and run with it. And it was always so much fun to watch her work. I loved watching the Privy Council bits, were actually really interesting and learning about the history of the period. And also, we would have other characters kind of go and stand among the audience to talk to them about what's going on. It's just like, can you believe what he just said? Can you imagine? And this is, let me give you some of the backstory about who he is and why he's saying that, and just there to kind of hype up what could be seen as something very dull and dry. It's a privy council meeting. Why on earth should we be interested in that? And oh, let me tell you, there is this incredible intrigue that you're not seeing, and those two absolutely hate each other. Look, you see the way that they're talking to each other. I'll bet you anything he's going to deny what that person just said, and he's going to argue that his course of action is going to be better, that sort of thing. And we can bring that intrigue in, the backstory in, to the audience members who might not know. So that was always a lot of fun to be part of as well. Just kind of to bring people in and to help them to understand our world more than just what they can see.
Was there a definable moment where you said to yourself, hey, I could be queen? Or was it you just read that they need a new queen and you figured, what the hell? Why don't I try that?
Oh my gosh. Well, there were a number of opportunities in my life that I did not take. The first time I had heard that Athene had been stepping down. And in fact, the last year before I moved to England, Athene and Louisa had alternated that final season, which was lots of fun. But I had people in court who came up to me saying, hey, why don't you think about auditioning? And I said, I can't. I'm moving to England in 4 months. I'm not going to be here anymore. And I was surprised to think about it because our Queen Elizabeths had always been older than I was. I would have been 20 at the time. And the Queen had always been kind of early 40s, it seemed, around that sort of age range. Elizabeth came to the throne, I think, at 25. And so we always played kind of 15, 70s. So she would have been in her late 30s, early 40s, early to mid 40s. And enough that she has the stature and gravitas of a world leader and the appropriate stature of a monarch. But we had never had a young queen, and I just thought they're not going to look at me for that. And in any case, I was moving out of the country, so it wasn't even an option. And then as I'm out of the country, I lived there until I was 28. And during that time, I'm thinking, God, I wish I could have done that. Just imagine actually being able to play queen and learning the history of the first people who were in the role, who had how did that even come about? Just go and suggest it. God, wasn't that lucky? And thinking, well, clearly I've missed my shot and that's it. So there we are. When I moved back to Southern California and got involved in Renaissance Fair again, it was, I think, 2007, after that season when Galen had stepped down and they announced that they were going to be auditioning for Queen again. And I thought, this is my chance. This is my moment. I have to do it. This is incredible. And then I found out I was pregnant. And unfortunately, the Virgin Queen Elizabeth is one role that you absolutely cannot play pregnant. And so it killed me, but I had to let the opportunity pass. I couldn't. I decided not to audition. I didn't tell anyone because it was really early days. It wasn't unexpected. Obviously, we'd been trying, but it was the timing, and it just wasn't meant to be. I had to let that one go, and it was so frustrating. And but I thought I'm still part of court. I still enjoy it. And whoever they do cast, I'm going to help them out because that's what we do. We are the supporting cast and we're going to help out whoever is put in the role. And they had cast Victoria Hanlon, who was absolutely wonderful and the only English woman we've actually ever had play as Queen Elizabeth. She is an English actress and living in Southern California, an absolutely delightful person. But I believe she had never been to Renaissance Fair before. And didn't necessarily know quite what she was in for. So I wanted to help and support her as much as possible in this is kind of how the fair day goes, and this is how people are going to attend you, and let us know what we can do to help you, sort of thing. When Vicky had stepped down, Hannah was queen after that, and she was the one who was queen right before me. Hannah, of course, born at fair. She's absolutely legendary and has been a part of the fair since I think she was presented to the Queen on main stage when she was a couple of days old. So Hana knew, Hana knew what to do with the fair. And again, switching gears because each actress has their own take on the role. Everyone is completely different. So we learned to support her in the way that she needed it and how she wanted to approach the role as well. And then I think it was 2017, they had announced that they were auditioning for an understudy for the Queen. And I had been interested in being the understudy. I was surprised that we didn't have one and thought, well, let me put myself forward for that. So I went and auditioned and I was cast and I was Hannah's understudy that year. And at the end of that season, she had announced that she was, in fact, going to be stepping down from the role. And management reached out to me saying, we are interested in offering you the role of Queen Elizabeth. And so I've played her since then. I will say, when the audition for understudy came by, my son, who at that point was 8 years old, I had told him that I was interested in auditioning for Queen, and he didn't want me to. He actually said, no, I don't want you to play the Queen. I want you still to play my mom. And I was thinking for a minute that, God, am I going to have to pass this opportunity again? I just, so we talked about it and explaining what this meant to me and why I was interested in it. And he talked to me about why he was nervous about it and what he actually wanted. And I pointed out to him, he realized I'm still going to be in court the entire day. I'm still going to be there. You can come and see me all the time. You have all of your friends here at court that you enjoy hanging out with. And that's not going to change. And I made a deal with him that if I auditioned and I was cast, that I would let him get dressed with me in my trailer so that he wouldn't be alone backstage and dealing with other people, that he could come and hang out with me in the morning. And that would still be our time together. My husband gets dressed backstage at court where he keeps his basket over by the yeoman, whereas my son and we get dressed in the trailer. So my husband's not allowed there, but my son and we made a deal. And so he gets to stay there, and even now, he will get dressed back in my trailer with me, and I help him get ready in the morning and then send him off, and he has his own adventures during the day. He had accepted that, and just knowing that he was still special and still a part of my life and that I wouldn't forget him just because of the role that I was playing. And I think as well that has really helped to keep me grounded in playing this particular role, because I don't get to be all high on myself and how self-important I might be when I'm basically attending my son and helping him to get dressed into his suit every morning. For anyone who has children, you know that your teenager is never going to be impressed by you. So I think that helps to keep me grounded.
Can you take a moment and talk about other ladies who have played the queen and what their strengths were?
Wow. I have attended many, many ladies who have played the queen. Athene, I've already talked about somewhat, but she has such a powerful, commanding presence and demonstrated the intelligence and the wit. Athene will forever be my queen, even now. I mean, when I picture Queen Elizabeth, it's not me, it's her. Louisa was the next one that I attended because she and Athene had shared that year. Louisa really was the icon. That she was the picture. Louisa was that woman on the coin, and she even looked like the historical Elizabeth. And I think she had a background in mime, so she was very physical, and she was able to communicate miles away just from her own presence and stature. And it was really interesting to see her work just because it was so different. And she was gentler than Athene, but she was still very much Elizabeth. And then we had Dre Sargent, who's the queen at Northern. She was the understudy one year that I came back to visit when I was living in England and I came to visit. And so she was very playful and very mischievous and would like to play games with the court. And that was always very entertaining. Gaylin was good Queen Bess. So her approach was she is in a holiday humor and she is bringing joy and jollity wherever she goes. And that is another aspect that I've taken huge inspiration that I want to include that in mine as well. Because I don't want people to be afraid of me. I don't want the little children coming up to be terrified and walking up to me. I don't want adults walking up to be terrified, but they still are. But I want to exude an aura of welcome and that I am genuinely pleased that my people are here to see me. Mary Wine was Gaylin's understudy, and so she had filled in one day. Mary, I think, really exemplified the outreach, the communication aspect. In particular, historically, Elizabeth spoke 7 languages fluently, and Mary knows sign language and would go up and speak to her people in that. And I always loved that aspect of it as well. Vicky had a wonderful sense of fun and playfulness, of just not being, she is away from the palace and she is out among her people and she is going to enjoy every bit of this festival. She is going to have fun. Hannah really loved to bring something unexpected. Hannah would subvert what you were thinking of as queen and would bring in something to challenge what you thought. That she would stand up and recite Shakespeare that you wouldn't expect Queen Elizabeth to do. She would invite singers or dancers to come in and she would come and join them. So Hannah would always try to challenge what you were expecting as queen, but you never doubted who she was. Every single person that I've interacted with in the role, everyone has brought their own interpretation, their own spin on it. And I've taken, I think, a little bit of each one of them in my own portrayal.
To what extent does that respect that the queen gets because she's the one in the costume, that she's the one everyone is going, God save the queen, and they're all rising, they're all falling? I mean, there are certain things that are built into the role that make it the queen kind of thing. Do you ever feel like it's the costume that people are responding to?
No, the costume is important, and I have tremendous respect for our costume department because my goodness, Tamara and her assistants are just amazing. And I'm incredibly grateful for the work that she puts in to make me look good, and for my people who help me to dress and to do my hair, and they help to get the bride ready every day, and then that I go forward. But the costume can only do so much. And honestly, I can only do so much. I am only the queen because everybody out there agrees that I am. If they don't think that I'm the queen, if they don't pay attention when I walk by, if they don't shout "God save the Queen" or reverence or cheer, then I'm not. And there's nothing that I can do, no matter what I'm wearing. There's nothing that I can do to change that. And so it's always been a cooperative effort that I will go out there and I will be the queen, but you all have to say that I am. You all have to accept that I am and agree with me. And the costume is amazing. And I'm big and shiny and will always attract attention. And I'm going to throw on every bit of jewelry that I can and throw on every accessory I can. So I've got the headpieces, I've got the crown, I've got my gloves, I've got my jewelry, I have my ruffs, I have everything that I can do to create the role visually. And then my performance on top of that. But I don't think it's just the costume. I don't think it's ever just been the costume. I could walk out there in persona. And if everybody says that I am the queen, even if I'm wearing something really simple, then if everyone acknowledges me as the queen, then I am the queen and I can overcome any sort of costume, no matter what I'm wearing.
What happens when a little girl is dressed up as a Disney princess? How do you Elizabethanly say hello, Ariel, or whatever?
Well, when they are brought before me, my courtiers will already have found out her name. So they will come up and present her to me as Princess Ariel, and I will welcome her as Princess Ariel, and I will ask her about her kingdom and ask about the news from from underwater as well as from her current from Prince Eric and her kingdom, and just to give me the information in the report. I have welcomed delegations from Wakanda. I have welcomed countless Disney princesses. I have welcomed princesses in their own right. I if they will come up and give me their own name, my name is Princess Catherine. Like, yes, you are, and welcome to my kingdom. And tell me, I'll have visitors from the fairy court, and I will then create an ambassadorship for them and ask them to report back on how we might improve relations between my kingdom and theirs. So there's always a way that we can draw it in. I will accept whoever they say they are because they're going to accept who I say I am. And then we will have a mutual agreement and we'll have our conversation based on that. It's always very firmly in the yes and sort of school of
Right.
improv. If you come up to me and you say that you're Ariel, by golly, that's who you are, and that's how I'll treat you.
I remember like we had a 2:30 show that the Queen's procession would always interrupt. And you know, at a certain point you just had to go, God save the Queen. You had to stop the show,
Mm-hmm.
everyone turn around, hooray, it's the Queen.
Yeah, that still happens. Even when I'm walking in the morning or when I'm being carried by in the afternoons. Yeah, I realize I'm going to upstage whatever shows, but I love being able to be a part of it when I'm acknowledged by the act on stage and the audience gets to see me as well because they realize it's a losing battle. I'm going to draw attention no matter what I do, and there's only so much. One thing I do like to do, especially if I have unscheduled time in the afternoons and there's a show going on, I love to walk in and watch a show. I'll stay for a song or two and then I'll have to leave because I don't want to upstage the entire show. But I will have a great time coming in. And my favorite is to go and visit the NC-17 stage, the Rogues Reef stage, because they're not expecting the queen to go and walk in. And I love seeing the performers on stage see me approaching and the look of panic on their faces. And then the audience is watching them thinking, wait, what's going on? And then they turn around and then see me coming in and realize, and I'm only coming in for one song because I don't want to upstage everything. But I usually have something, I'll have a reaction to it. And they'll have a drinking song and I'll down my cup, or they'll have some sort of song that I can talk I can react to. And then at that point, I'll thank them very much and I'll leave and let them continue their show. It is so much fun when schedules align and I can go and interact with some of the performers that way as well. And I've gotten to know a lot of them in those visits. And then I get to invite them to come to see me at court. And again, we just get to have more interactions. I love being able to play. And if I have an opportunity to play, I'm going to take it.
Excellent. Yeah, we were never visited. We were often thrust in front of the Queen, but we were never, she didn't come to see our shows.
Well, I
Uh,
think she had limited schedule initially. When I first started at Fair, the Queen would only be out for about 3 hours during the day. She would be paraded in. There was the Queen's show. There was some entertainments at Glade, and then she would be out. But it was really only about 3 or 4 hours at most. I come in just before noon, and I'm there until the end of the day. So I have a lot more time. It's not that I'm finished after 4 o'clock. I'm still doing things for the whole of the day. And in fact, I process out with the closing parade and I bid farewell to everybody after our closing song. So I am still there and I'm still a part of everything and I have more time to fill. And what I've started doing actually is I make appointments to go and visit all of the different various guild yards. And if there's a booth that wants me to visit, I have an open invitation. If you want the Queen to come and stop by, I'll get it in my calendar. I will come and see you. And I have loved those so much because it gives each guild a chance to show off without me suddenly turning up and surprising them. They have a chance to prepare for it and to think about what we would do if the Queen came to visit. So I'll visit, say, the military, and they'll do a powder demonstration for me, and they'll do a militia muster for me. And I get to see all these things that I don't ever get to get close to. St. Helena's will put on a show for me and they'll have things that they've baked and treats and things, and they'll have games for me to play. St. Ives will do entertainments for me and they'll have crafts that were made actually on that site and presentations and things. Clan McCollin, they'll have a show, they'll have dancing and singing and again entertainments to put on for the Queen, but each one is different and everybody gets to show off their talents for me, what they can do. And it's fantastic because I don't get to see what they do during the day other than when I walk by. And I love that I get to give them an anchor to show off in front of the Queen. I started that last year and I've had the best time with it. So I'm going to continue those going forward because it's just so much fun.
I'm going to try something now
Okay.
that sometimes fails horribly and
All
other
right.
times has been really good. I am going to set up a sort of an improv scene,
Okay.
and I will be everybody else. You are you walking through the fair. It's at the back of the fair. It's about 10 in the morning, and you're walking, for some reason, you're walking without anybody. You see a family. There's mom and there's dad. The girl is about 7 and she has obviously a new garland. The little boy, he has a wooden sword. The girl is wearing like a granny dress with a little bit of lace on it. So it looks like they've taken some care in putting on a costume. They see you, they kind of give you that shy kind of, oh, look, there's the Queen. What do you do?
I pray come forward. Be not afraid. I love all my people. My word, you are dressed for revelry of the May. You have your spring finery upon your head. How wondrous you look. Is this your first time at the festival? It
The
is.
little girl grabs her mom's thigh and kind of she's she's gobsmacked.
And what
And
is
the
your
little
name?
boy sort of waves his sword at you.
I see a very brave young soldier here. I wonder, perhaps you might be interested in becoming a knight of our realm.
He
Do you
he's
know?
kind of he's kind of like looking at you and then goes, "Okay."
Mhm. And then I shall speak unto the parents. Do you know that we shall be knighting children at our court at 3 of the clock? I pray you will go and put their names down, for I wish to see them to come before me again, and I shall be very pleased to make him a knight and to make her a dame, if they will have it. But I wish to give you something that you may remember me as well. Is that all right?
They say,
Excellent.
"Yes." And the girl, she's no longer clutching and hiding behind her mom, looking in your basket of what the treats might be.
Oh, and we have a great many number of them. I think me for our young potential knight here, I shall give you a crown. So it's a little ring that is shaped like a crown. You may put it, I think, perhaps upon this finger shall be best. Yes, that shall be well. And for thee, my dear, I have a ring that has a stone that matches thy gown. I would give you this. And I pray that when you look at it, when you gaze upon it, you will remember your visit with us and us here this day. Excellent. Well, shall we have a portrait together?
Of course. And Dad pulls out his self camera.
Yes, indeed. And I am never alone, so I will have one of my people to take it with me, and then the others shall go around. We will array ourselves as we will. Splendid. Indeed. I do hope that I shall see you this afternoon. I shall look forward to it. Excellent. Well,
And that's very good. You have a way to get out of there when you have done, when it's time
yes.
to move on. I haven't been out to fair in a while, but can you tell me, does the queen still wear white?
I have three costumes that currently fit me, none of which that were made for me, but were altered to fit me after the fact. There is one that is white that was made for the 50th anniversary. So that is white and gold, and it's absolutely spectacular. And I typically will wear that one for opening day and for closing day. And then I have one that is purple. And it's kind of a lavender and gold brocade. And then it had a purple forepart and dark purple velvet sleeves. But a couple of years ago, the costume director made a stunning gold forepart and sleeves to go with it. And so I've started wearing that, and that has become one of my favorites to wear. It's just it glows and it exudes royalty and nobility, and I absolutely adore it. And then the third one that I wear is a gold doublet gown. That one is the rain dress. So that one specifically is meant for inclement weather because it's the fewest layers. They're all polyester. They can all get rained on, but that one in particular is the one that is tapped for if there is any rain in the forecast. There are other gowns that do not currently fit me. There is one for my understudy that is kept aside. That's the red gown. Of these, I love that I know the people who made each of them because me being a costumer myself, I'm well aware of the amount of love and effort and sweat and blood and tears that go into each of these garments and the amount of effort it takes to keep them in good condition and keep them clean and to keep them fitting me. The white gown was made by Perry Ash for the 50th anniversary. The purple gown was made by Frida Paris Jones, the late Frida Paris Jones, who was an absolute force of nature. And the gold doublet gown was made by Jeff Schoenberg. And the forepart and sleeves that uplift Frida's purple gown were made by Tamara Wu. And all of them, their skill and their talent and the work involved is just incredible. But I also add my own touch to it. I am a big historical costuming nerd, and my big thing is ruffs. I love neck ruffs and wrist ruffs, and I learned how to make them by a wonderful tutorial from Noel Gilliam. And I have taken it and run with it. And I try and encourage everyone I meet to get ruffs put on. So I made my own ruffs as queen that I wear. And I also have started expanding all of my jewelry collection that anytime I can find a reproduction piece of something that's in a portrait of Elizabeth, I will get it. And I found a portrait of Elizabeth where she's wearing a Lesser George medallion. And so I got a Lesser George to wear. And then I was given a Greater George to wear, the Greater George collar. And I love wearing that because the audience will ask me about that. Why are you wearing a horse there? And I can explain to them that that's St. George and he's atop his steed and he's slaying the dragon. And I can explain to them what the Greater George is and what the Order of the Garter is and the whole story behind its inception and why I'm wearing it, why the Queen is a member of the Order of the Garter, and how many of them there are, and how one can't be appointed or raised to the Order of the Garter until an existing Garter Knight passes. So I'm able to share stories and share history and share more about who I am with all of the things that I wear. And that is, whether that's the white dress or the gold dress or the purple dress or any of the jewelry I wear, I get to teach people about my character and about the history of this period just from what I'm wearing as well. And I love that.
Can I end on a slightly personal question?
Sure.
How did your sister end up now that you're the queen and in a sense lapped her?
My sister is my biggest supporter. She always has been and is she was so excited when I was cast as the queen and has come to watch me and to she lives in Chicago, so she doesn't get a chance to come out and see me as often. But the times that she has, she will come out to fair, and she's never been in court. She's always been middle class at her highest. So she will come and follow me around as an attendant, or she'll come and sing for the queen because she did also continue singing and is that is a professional opera singer now by profession. So she has celebrated every year that I've been in this role, and she is so proud to tell all of her friends that that's my sister, the queen.
Well, very nice. And I think that's a good spot to end this interview. That was my August 2024 interview with Christina Forst. I'm your host, Dan McLaughlin, and if you would like me to forward questions or comments to Christina, you can email me at djng at earthlink.net. Questions or comments in general about the podcast can also be emailed me at djng at earthlink.net. If you or somebody you know would like to be a guest on Fair Folk at Work, please email me at djng at earthlink.net. But that's it for this time. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye bye.